Hello and welcome to the MAKEthrough.studio podcast. My name is Jon Champion and I'm your host on today's show. What we like to do here is invite beautiful, creative artists on to talk about what they love, why they love it, how they came to love those things, and how those things inspire them on a daily basis in their work, in their love, in their passion. We invite each guest on the show to come armed with 5 things from their life that have inspired them the most. That might be a song, a TV show, a person, a book, a moment, a show, a memory, a poem, a sound, a day, anything that's inspired these beautiful angels, these artists in their lives, in their work, to come on and talk about that. In today's show, we have Jon Champion, and full disclosure, this guy's my brother, and he is doing me a favour, sure. It's show 1. I don't know if this podcast is going to go anywhere. Hopefully it does, but it's show number 1. I wanted to get the most inspiring person that I know currently to come on and talk about their inspiration and their work and their passion, and that is my brother Jon. He's just the most beautiful, creative, articulate, thoughtful, sensitive guy. And for me personally, the most pure and the most impressive source of inspiration that I have in my life personally. So he is today's guest. Know him, love him, come and listen to what he's got to say. And in the meantime, have your make through when you get a chance. Creativity can be useful every day. A good idea can be magnified when creative individuals work together. We can design new products, systems, processes, and social narratives. We can improve our culture, our relationships, our politics, and our well-being if we think and create together. Go to MAKEthrough.studio, and as I'm speaking today, recording this episode right now, you can sign up to be an early adopter of our app, the MAKEthrough app. It's not quite ready yet. It will be very soon. I'm sure if you're listening back to this sometime in the future, it's already ready and you can already download it, so please go and do that. And I'm sure it's taken off and exploded, and it's become the most beautiful source of inspiration for millions of people across the world. Hopefully it becomes something special. But that is enough of that. Let's get into today's episode. And as I've told you already, it's Jon Champion, aspiring showrunner. Let's find out what his 5 favourite sources of inspiration are in his life and how he's managed to utilise and weaponize those things to plug them back into his own creativity. Take it away, Jon. Let's go.
All right. Well, I need more on that, but we'll get back to that.
Listen, anyway, I've started recording, so we're off and running. It's a great pleasure to have you here. You're my. No, mate. I can't think of anyone better, more qualified. You're like my favourite person for this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, full disclosure for the audience, like,
that sounds really
yeah. No, but there's like, you're my brother. You know that.
Wait,
audience
what?
doesn't know. Yeah. So there is a little bit of, we're in sort of favour territory. We're sort of helping each other out here a little bit. But actually, the truth is that you're, for me, probably the most inspiring thing in my life, actually. Which I feel like, if hopefully this podcast holds water and turns into something long term, but I feel like you're going to be like a recurring theme. You're going to be like a returning hero. Do you know what I mean? Like, throughout. So I reckon this is the first of your episodes. Maybe there'll be a little at some point there might be a little bit playlist of just you.
Okay.
But for the audience, who the hell are you? Like, just tell me, what's your name? What do you do? What are you about?
My name is Jon Champion. I am a writer, not professionally yet, but that's the plan. Worked in the film and TV industry for a few years, up until halfway through last year, and then decided to focus entirely on chasing screenwriting, or indeed any kind of writing, looking for an agent and just sort of try to start a new patch of my creative career.
Okay, so you say you were working in the TV industry. How old are you? And just describe what that means, what you were doing.
So I'm 26, and my last job was it's development. So you're essentially reading scripts a lot and just sort of providing feedback and dealing with agencies and meeting potential talent and collaborators. It's like a it's its own kind of education. Like, you're basically just there to observe and help where you can. So that's what I was doing up until halfway through last year.
Okay. And how did you get that job? How did that job happen? I mean, how did you come to be in that position? Do you think you were lucky? Did you work hard? Did you know someone? Like, do you think it was a perfect storm of a few things? How did you arrive in that place?
So I always knew I wanted to do that. The idea was, if I can make a living working in the industry in some way and write on the side, that would be perfect. So I was like, what job would be perfect? And I thought, if I was reading scripts and getting paid for it, I'm earning money and learning about the craft of scripts.
Which for a lot of people listening, I would guess, is a strong position to be in.
Right.
Because typically their sort of 9 to 5 bread and butter job isn't necessarily in the industry that they're trying to break into.
Yeah.
So that to me sounds like a strong position to be in as a starting point.
So I was desperately hungry for it. And speaking of 9 to 5, before this I was working for an online fashion company, like customer service, like
Okay.
I hated it.
Sure.
But I was like dreaming about how I would get.
Of course.
So I
That just pause there for a sec.
Yeah.
That moment for me is so familiar, and I think will be familiar for many listening. Sitting in that job that doesn't mean anything except the paycheck,
right.
And between every email or every meeting, your mind is constantly focused on, I'm in the wrong place. How do I break into this music thing that I want to do, or this book thing that I want to work on, or this photography thing that I'm chasing, or how do I make plays, how do I design stages, how do I make costumes, how do I do makeup? Like, the creative people in those settings, I think it's incredibly common for them to be sort of busy, switched on to the thing that they're truly passionate about, and sort of feel a sense of wasted time being in this job that they need to have because of reasons,
Right.
So I don't want to sort of push that point too hard, but your starting position there seems solid, strong.
So left that fashion job because I'd been blind emailing production companies at my desk at this shitty job, got some responses, and suddenly I'd laid enough track to be able to just quit the job and just pursue it.
Okay.
It might have ended up no, but I felt like I had enough
Leap of faith.
traction to dive head first, and it led to the right interviews and the right people, and cut to I'm in this production company, and it was all very much a combination of right place, right time, but also chasing every single possible lead, and also I tend to be quite earnest. Like, a lot of people, if they're interviewing for a job, it's like, professional, logical, rational kind of answers. But I'm like, I love this stuff with all my heart.
Right.
I think it's important to show that you're approaching it as a lover of it before employee.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So and the interview often is refreshed by that because
I was just about to say that. I'm sure that's probably unusual, right?
They've been talking to me that saying stuff.
I feel like I'm a perfectionist.
yeah.
Right? And you're just like, no, I love this stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the room lights up because you tell the truth.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And
Okay.
It can be.
And it's authentic.
It might be quite schmaltzy, but it's just
right.
It's just the truth.
Just go there. Yeah. I feel a similar way. I'm more than happy to put my street cred on the table. You know what I mean? I'll sacrifice that in order to authentically tell the truth about how I feel about stuff.
Right.
So that feels more true than I could ever explain. Actually, just you describing that. Okay. That's a beautiful bit of background. Is there anything else you'd like to just flesh out on your background stuff?
I think we've covered it. I
Okay,
think,
all
I
right.
think we're happy to
Sweet.
let you lead the way.
Brilliant. All right. Well, the purpose of the podcast is what we like to do here is we're going to go through. We've got a collection of 5 things that have inspired you in your time. We're going to go through each one. We'll spend 10 minutes on each one if we can. We'll try and keep it quite tight. Mm-hmm. If we open up a tangent, if there's something that goes on, I think let's just explore that and see where we get to. But before we do that, like what's just for clarity, what's the dream job? What's the ultimate goal? Where are you heading?
The ideal scenario is earning a living as a writer, whether it's for television or film or books. Just if I can make a living doing that as the main source of income, and also enjoy it, which I do because I love it. That's the ideal scenario, and then anything else is a bonus.
Absolutely. That sounds incredibly familiar again, you know, just to sustain that lifestyle, have the work be the passion. And
I also sort of decide what the hours are, like to a certain level, like, oh, I'd like to have a month off now, and I'm going to have it because I can, rather than having to negotiate, with the boss or...
And as you know well, living in that creative space, trying to churn out substantial, interesting, intriguing, compelling narrative isn't easy, obviously. But if you experience any kind of burnout, or you're not in that state of that fizz state where it's happening naturally, if you're labouring at it, those breaks that you're talking about are absolutely vital to go out, consume some life for a little while, see something new, try something new, challenge yourself a little bit, and then come back to the canvas, the page, whatever it is.
Because you were talking about like being in that office job, thinking about what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
And that is, you're using energy doing that. So that by the end of the day, not only you're tired from the work day, you're tired from dreaming about the ideal work day, and you're drained. So tired.
It's draining.
And then you have to do it again tomorrow.
And then typically, you're absolutely right, and then typically you get home, and if it's, okay, I've got a chance now to sit in front of the computer, I'm going to write something. You need to feed yourself. There's probably some life that needs to happen. Like you need to go out and do something, and probably between work and arriving at home, ready to do something. Maybe it's 9 p.m. by the time you get sat in front of whatever it is you're trying to create. And then maybe you've got an hour before you've reached that ceiling where you can't do it anymore. And you can only sustain that. I mean, a couple of weeks of that, and you'll soon find that ceiling and burn out, no doubt. And obviously that there are weekends, but you need to tick every box. You need that social life to be interesting. You need that sort of exercise element to be exciting. You need the food. You need the rest. You need the sleep. You know, you need to be learning something. You need to fit all of those things in on top of life stuff, laundry and cooking, and you know what I mean, like all that stuff you need to do. So balance is another, I think, key point, another through line for all of this, I think, is going to be trying to balance all of those things, I suspect. But going into your 5 things, the first of which you've got on here is a broad one, music. Now, I mean, we could go an hour on that, right?
Yeah, I'm going to cover all music.
Right.
After this, there'll be you about what music is.
So can you just give us some context for this list? What does that word mean?
Like that's I was going to say, in relationship to the other 4 things, it's a kind of foundation. So like the memory that comes to mind is when I was about 3 years old, Titanic was out.
Okay.
And that Celine Dion song that was on everywhere.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it just sort of struck something. I was a kid, but I was singing it, and like there's home video of me like listening to it. I'm not really in the room. I'm my eyes are sort of fixed on nothing. I'm just in the song. For whatever reason, it was just evoking this state of proximal engagement, just like you know, where everyone wants to be all the time. And then the song would end. There's a bit in that home video where we're sat at the table eating, the song ends, I keep singing it for about another 10 seconds, and then I start to reveal where I am, and then everyone laughs. Like, oh, hi everyone. So, like, whatever that is, music was doing that to me from a young age.
Understood.
But
how do you feel about that song now, by the way?
It still makes me feel like it's like nostalgia plus it's such a complicated. Obviously, it's quite a cheeseful song, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's
right.
Like,
but the reason to bring it up is that
also it was accompanying a film, and that's important.
Right.
Like, it was
narrative.
Right. I think if it was just a song,
it
might not have been as important.
So that was fueling the imagination.
It was the idea of music and visual storytelling are like kind of inseparable. So I think that was like, okay, as a 3-year-old can understand that
viscerally, and as an animal, you were observing
like,
that stuff.
I respond to this.
Yeah.
Do with that what you will.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. And it's interesting how that song, like you say, that has a certain reputation. You can say that song to a group of 50 people and perhaps 48 of them will sort of roll their eyes and laugh at you a little bit. And it's funny how music can change like that over time. But the important thing, that you've said there, just about how it took you to that place that is almost undescribable, but is perhaps the most tangible thing to come out of that moment.
Right. And obviously, I sort of just consumed music as a regular fan, the way other people do, like, you know, just have it on in the car, or
of course,
you know, it wasn't always about thinking about it in terms of a film or a show.
No, sure, but it can be that.
Right.
Like, if you're going to work out, you don't listen to jazz, you know what I mean?
Right. And like, now I'm lucky enough I can drive, and like every car journey is like just song after song, quite loud, and it's the best feeling ever. And I still have that feeling of like I could not be more engaged in this thing. And so music by itself and as part of visual storytelling is like a kind of foundational, like inseparable part of me, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I know that. I've seen that, right?
By the way.
And just, what are some of those other milestones along the way? Like, as you started to move into adolescence and, to figure out different media and learn different scenarios where music might play a role. Like, just talk us through the progression of music from that moment.
Well, weirdly, I sort of grew up throughout the noughties, which was a weird decade. Like, it was, MP3 players and really weird, like, start-up technology. So it wasn't smartphones quite yet. It was still like, you've got this USB stick with like 25 songs.
Yeah.
And every now and then you might just sort of add one or take one away.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual music, like, Coldplay is kind of a religion in our family. It's real fans of that band. And again, I've got shit for that my whole life. Like, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I've always sort of proudly stood by this. I like this band, like, and I'm quite proud that I like it.
You're right though. They do have a reputation actually. If you say that you say Coldplay to someone, they have a preloaded, preconceived opinion about what that means.
It's often the 48 people eye-rolling to some.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Like, it's really good.
It's so subjective though. Like, music taste.
Right, and I might have that reaction to someone else's thing.
Of course you would.
And that's so cool. But
have you ever seen them live?
Yeah, quite a few
Coldplay.
times. Yeah, quite a few times.
Talk me through that. What happened there? I am just going to cut in here and let you guys know that if you were to have a business or a service, if there's something out there that you think would be useful and inspiring to artists across the world, a business, a service, a product, you can advertise here as part of the show. This is where we would have our sponsored segment. We don't have that on this show. It's our first episode, so hopefully we have some sponsors and some advertising in the future, some tasteful sponsors and advertising in the future. If that's you, let us know. You can go to MAKEthrough.studio, click on contact, leave your details, leave us a little message. We'll come back to you and we'll figure it out. But for now, back to the show.
Well, just, the first time I went, I was about 13 years old, 14. It was like, the kind of epicenter of high school and playground politics and, growing up around people that were a bit different to me, but I had this music that was like a constant, don't worry about any of that, you've got this stuff.
Place to go, yeah.
Yeah, and so to see it in a live space and see the band, literally, they're in your eye line, you're in the same physical space, was really kind of overwhelming and just incredible. And then I was lucky enough to see them pretty much throughout the late noughties and early 10s, and I'm still a fan now. Yeah.
Have you ever met them, the guys in the band?
Yes. One of the concerts I was at, I was dancing next to this slightly older woman, and between songs she sort of leant into my ear and she was like, "Are you a fan of this band?" And I was like, "What do you think?" and she said,
"No, I'm in the wrong."
Yeah, no, I wanted spicy.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Oh, the bass player is my son."
Oh.
And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, what? And also, how beautiful that she's just playing a mum card.
Right.
Look at my son. Look
Yeah. And then I realised that, I'm surrounded by the bass players.
Oh, no, yeah.
And, because I look a certain way when I'm dancing, I imagine it evoked a sense of, oh, this guy's sweet.
Oh.
And it just led to, concert finished, they sort of, brought me backstage and I met the band.
Incredible, man. What was that moment like?
Just like, also with that, I think this would be a theme throughout the conversation, but there's a certain level with me where I just know, with the writing stuff, I know that I'm going to do something that ends up being enjoyed by some people. It's a feeling of, there's no way that I can know, but I do know.
Yeah, I have a similar feeling about myself.
Right.
And additionally, in this scenario,
Right.
I have that feeling for you too.
Right.
You know?
But also with this band, whenever I listen to them or watch, particularly Chris,
Yes.
I think that guy's like...
He's an artist, and it's almost like an angel. It's
100%.
It's
yeah.
clearer to me sometimes when someone is an artist in how they operate and how they create and how they present their creations. Sometimes in the delivery of that stuff or in the pursuit of it as it's coming together and as it's being created, those people jump out to me, rightly or wrongly. How it feels is that that's my tribe. And not to say that I'm not putting myself in the same category as those people, but it's a light. They are a beacon of inspiration, and you're drawn to these people. For me, Chris Martin is one of those people. I sort of struggle. I understand that band isn't for everyone, and it's difficult to reconcile that sometimes because I do like their music too, and I definitely appreciate what you're saying, or what you started to explore there with Chris and how he stands out as, like I'm saying, angel stroke artist. To be honest, I would love to reel off. I feel like I might sort of that might be a through line for this as well. Just who are those people, and at different times, different episodes, let's stop and talk about them for a little bit.
Right.
We're going back to what you were saying. I don't feel like you were quite done with what you were saying about that.
I think I was sort of saying there's something about the way Chris, the way he plays stuff, his sense of rhythm, his voice, the way he talks in interviews. I just feel like he's like, it just feels like another brother. Like, I would not be surprised if we did like a blood test. And there was some kind of, obviously not, but like, I would not be surprised if someone said, you guys are kind of distant relatives.
Oh, right.
It's just a feeling of like familiarity. And
Yes.
if I could play piano, I'd play it like that.
Yes.
I
always felt like the music would play him.
Right.
He'd be on stage with that guitar or sat at the piano.
Yeah.
And there might even be, when he gets really excited, there might even be a couple of wrong notes,
right.
or he'll make mistakes. But he's so inside it. It's so happening to him as much as he's performing it.
I guess that kind of harks back to what I described of the Celine
Yes.
Dion thing. You're
in that space.
You're not in the room.
Have you seen
anymore.
Soul, Pixar movie?
Yeah.
When he's in the zone.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point was just like, I was lucky enough to find artists like that, like Coldplay or other people, where the music was providing constant instances of that zone.
Yes.
And that's like where...
Like a bass line. I feel like it's a language.
That's often where you find your best ideas.
Yes.
So you have to spend a lot of time there. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
So music. I mean, like I'm saying, I feel like you're going to be back. We're going to talk about this a whole bunch.
Right.
And music will be a through line, particularly in your other items on the list. But do you feel like we've covered that? Like, is there anything, just before we move on to this next point, this next thing on your list, is there anything else you'd like to say in terms of...
Like you said, I think it will keep popping up throughout the conversation. I'm not a musician on paper, as in I can't play anything yet, and I'm not the best singer, but I feel like I am a musician, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Obviously it's physically hard to play stuff if you're me, but not impossible. I need to figure that out. But I feel like if I could have it my way, music would be the hobby, writing would be the career.
Understood.
So that again.
And the fuel. Probably.
Yeah, I would love that to end up being the case. It's just finding a way to manifest it, because it's slightly more complicated. But that feels like the right place to...
Of course. Alright, fine. So moving on to your second point then, in that case, your second item on the list of 5 things that inspire you. What I've got here is a TV show.
Yeah.
A bunch of these are TV shows. And again, this perhaps goes in the category of you say this to people and they're like, oh, really? You know what I mean?
Right.
What is this show, John?
So, Friends, is that the one that you...
Yeah. That's the one I got. We got the same list, right?
Yeah. Friends. So...
Friends, the TV show Friends.
Yeah. So,
okay.
I was born a year after it started to air.
Right.
So...
And hold on a second. When it aired, we're talking about half an hour.
Yeah. Once a week,
in this country, it was Channel 4, I think, on a Friday night. Appointment viewing. Sit your ass on the couch in front of that TV. Point your eyeballs at the television.
If you're not home, you're gonna miss it.
Yeah, and you might have a VCR,
right?
But
chances are,
otherwise, get your ass home and watch this show.
Yeah.
And it was half hour a week.
Uh-huh.
And what made this show different to you, do you think? Why did this do something slightly different in the culture?
Again, it was always on. It's 1 year older than me. So literally, it's been a thing since I was born. It was on a lot in the background. It kind of shaped the way that a lot of people in my generation, and I think your generation, talk. Like, it sort of had it had a very specific, like, you've described it as a language.
Yeah.
It's like a specific, like, rhythm and timing, and it kind of, for some reason, it arrived at a time where that was starting to develop anyway. And so yeah, I just remember it being on and kind of it became, oh, this is cool because everyone around me is enjoying it, therefore it must be cool. And it is cool. It's still funny. Like, it still makes you laugh.
It is funny.
today.
It is funny.
But
And
I
like,
think-
like you're saying, it's funny because of those little bespoke mannerisms that was sort of only present in that show, particularly
Right.
coming from Chandler Bing, the
Yeah,
character
yeah.
Chandler Bing,
yeah,
played by Matthew Perry. Is that his name?
yeah,
So he would, the way his comedy was delivered in a physical way, and particularly with his voice, he when you say that word rhythm, I think he was probably leading the charge on that.
yeah.
In terms of, in the early days anyway, certainly the stuff that sort of left its mark in the culture and the way people would quote it and
Right.
replicate it.
Yeah.
And then that sort of found its way and was also remained, it seemed to me, to be contained within the show as well. Like, all the characters started to develop their own version of that.
Right.
Like, you'd have the other characters, Ross and Joey, would deliver comedy in a similar way to I've just described that Chandler's character would, but they had their own sort of accent, and it all meshed beautifully. It was like my favourite shows, when we think about my favourite TV shows, they're always a perfect storm of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the casting was brilliant, the
Yeah.
timing was brilliant, the content is brilliant, the
Like,
music is
yeah.
brilliant, the set was incredible. You know, it just hits on multiple levels, and all of those things are sort of better than they've been on most other shows in a lot of cases.
Right.
And I think in the early days of Friends, it definitely moved the conversation forward. It changed things in the media, and it definitely left its mark on me. So I'm just sort of interested how that relationship evolved from being like appointment viewing once a week to being, in this country, on a Saturday, on a all weekend probably, there's a channel that just plays that show.
Yeah.
For a while there, it was just on. You could
Yeah.
just have it and watch it as like a comfort blanket.
Mm.
So just sort of talk me through that sort of progression.
So obviously I was growing up as it aired, and it started off as just a sort of, oh, I know what Friends is, and then as I got to like the age of 7, 8, 9, it was sort of starting to end, and it was like, oh, Friends is ending now. Like, what?
That's interesting too, actually.
Yeah, like-
ending a show. I think.
Like, it was my first sort of encounter with what a finale was.
Right.
And I was like, wait, so after season 10, there's no more
Yeah.
Friends?
Yeah.
It was like,
That was a new concept, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fairly. I think. I mean, I don't know. Sex and the City, I think, was around that time.
right,
Sopranos, I think, was
right.
in and around
Both
that
of
time.
those were sort of not suitable for my age yet.
Sure, you're sure.
But like, so season 10 comes around, and it's like, okay, I'm now 9 years old, a bit older, a bit more aware of what Friends is beyond, what it is to me. And so I watched these last few episodes with a feeling of, how is this going to end? Like, I can't quite imagine what that's going to be like. And then eventually the finale comes around. I watched it with our mum and dad. It was like an hour long. It was like double the length of a normal episode.
Yeah, I remember the episode.
And I watched it live when it aired, like start to finish, and was just profoundly affected by the event of it, as well as the actual episode and everything in that. But outside of that, it was the finale of a show that was loved, and for some reason that felt really important. Like, it was sort of like for some reason this is
It's concluded.
yeah.
It's finite.
Right, and it's affecting me in some
Yeah.
way. And then a few months after it ended, there was this behind the scenes like E-channel documentary on TV about how Friends sort of came to be. It was like
Way back when.
yeah, it was talking about how the writers had the idea and how they cast it and how
Right.
all the perfect storm stuff.
Yes.
How it all came together, and at some point in that hour-long documentary, it showed you footage of the writers' room, and the minute I saw that, it was like that was like a real lightning bolt what the hell is that?
Let me in there. Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
I see.
But I was like 10 years old. So
Okay.
it was like, I don't know what that is.
Don't know what that is.
That feels like that's what I want to do.
That's where I'm headed, yeah.
And that's why Friends is so important, because it's the first show that I saw end in real time, but it was also the first show that made me aware that, oh, people write this stuff, and it's like, it's words on paper that you can type.
Yeah, I understand that realisation.
Because up until that point, I was like, I think, as a 9-year-old, I was like, I think it's just books, but a lot of the ideas were, a lot of my ideas were informed by film and TV, so it was quite visual. But then I thought, scripts, like, it was writing, but for
a performance.
Yeah, which felt more kind of suited to my specific skill.
Yeah.
10-year-old skill set.
Words to be spoken versus words to be read.
Right. Equally wonderful, but I was like, I think I should, because I love film really.
Yeah.
It seemed like a perfect combination.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that you touched on there. What Friends did particularly well, it was obviously funny of its time. I think I don't know how, some of that comedy has probably expired at this point.
Right.
The culture has perhaps moved
Possibly,
on
yeah.
slightly, but a couple of things you touched on there, I think one is, yes, it was funny, but also Gervais and Merchant have said this, it was a soap opera as well.
Right.
You had the the love interest, the Ross and Rachel will they won't they, the sort of secondary, tertiary storylines that were episodic and sort of serialized, and that's what I think kept you coming back.
Right.
And the comedy was pleasant, thank you for that, but actually I want to see what happens now.
Right.
Which I'm not sure was true of the same sitcoms that were happening around it at that time. Like if you think about Will and Grace or Frasier, or those sitcoms were situational comedy that were sort of contained episode to episode. I think you can sort of, I'll just watch this one, I don't really need any more, and I can miss 5 and watch another one and it's fine. With Friends, I think it works that bit harder because there is that serialized episodic through line. And the other thing, I don't know, did you have something?
Just to agree, like
right,
like a lot of TV shows prior to Friends were sort of procedural, like
right.
By the end of this episode, the story's gonna be tied up, and the one after it is like a new story. But yeah, Friends was like it was like a hybrid. It had like procedural storytelling, ABC stories, but you're right. It had the overarching series arc as opposed to season. Like again, as you said, that was the reason to return. Yeah. And the comedy was just a bonus.
Yeah, really. And because you sort of, we all, I think, there's a bit of a gap between us, but sort of our generations, I think, feel like we grew up with them. So when you start to see Phoebe get married and stuff like that, and Chandler and Monica are moving to, where is it they move to?
Westchester?
No, where he gets a job in somewhere. I've got...
Tulsa.
Tulsa, yeah. I don't know if they end up actually moving there, but just watching them move through, okay, we're buying a house now, and we're sort of growing up.
There's a line where Monica's like, are they at least going to give you a pay rise? And he's like, no, but they are going to give us a Ford Focus.
Right. Now, interesting. If you write that line down and give it to me to say, is that funny?
Right.
I don't know.
Depends who you say it.
But right, if you put it in that show in the hands of Matthew Perry in that moment with his rhythm and his timing and his delivery, it's Friends funny, and it would have been pleasing and delivered
often well. It can come down to the emphasis of a word.
Yeah, lyrically, melody. It had a sort of, I think it had a music to it.
There's another. If I can just quote Friends for a second, there's a bit where Ross is having trouble at work because people keep eating his food, and he's like, he wants to stop that happening. Yeah, and
is that when Monica makes him the Thanksgiving sandwich with a moist maker?
Yeah, and Phoebe's like
That's situational comedy at its best.
Right, right.
We've probably experienced a version of that.
Yeah, it's like the stakes aren't that high.
Yeah.
But Phoebe's like, when I lived on the street, I learned that you have to be tough for people to get them to listen to you. And Ross is like, oh, okay, so what would you say, Phoebe? Like, stuff like, keep your mitts off my grub. And then Chandler says, when you picture Phoebe on the street, is she surrounded by the entire cast of Annie?
Right, exactly.
But the reason why that's funny is he emphasises the word entire.
Yeah. And sort of trails upwards at the end. Yeah. Like there's a melody.
Like, if you hadn't emphasised that word, it's not as funny. But that line is hilarious.
And because of that, you'd be sort of trying to emulate it with your friends. That's how you would rip them. You'd try and do something like that to them in that sort of dry, sarcastic way. The other thing you touched on there, just quickly, was shows concluding, which I think is going to be another through line, and one that I sort of wanted to jump into and explore with you on your next point. But before we get there, Friends, is there anything you want to wrap up about that?
Just the first show that I was out here, that you can do this as a job, and like, you know, it's not.
That's why it's integral to your.
Right, it's not just you're watching it in your house. It's people. This is someone's job. Like, these people are doing this. Like, it's their 9 to 5 to be on that set and produce that stuff or write that stuff. And because of that documentary I saw after the finale, it was like, that's like a tangible goal to go after. So from that point onwards, I knew that it was scripts that was the thing, and that sort of, it was the starting point of that being my north.
Understood, for sure. And just quickly, one more thing. Did you see the sort of homecoming reunion show? Yeah, did you watch that? Thoughts?
Yeah.
What are you saying about that?
Like, it was undeniably fascinating to watch and lovely to see them reminisce and be in the same space, and, you know, just people want to know that they're still important to each other.
Yeah.
Myself, and like, I hope that meant something. It meant what it meant to me, what it meant to those 6. And also there's that element of only those 6 people know what they went through.
Yeah.
Like, no one knows what that was like unless you're one of those 6. And that's like, as an outsider, you're like, I want to know what that feels like.
Let me inside it.
How can I do my... So yeah, it was, the reunion was, I think it can be hubris to indulge in nostalgia so much. Like, you know, there were parts of it where I was like, this isn't quite what it should be. That as a fan, it was just a comfort to see that they all were saying, oh yeah, we still care about this thing, and it's never going to leave our hearts. So I got what I needed for it. But it, I can see why it wasn't necessarily a hit with everyone.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I dug it.
Yeah.
I thought it was, like you're saying, satisfying.
Yeah.
Right, so moving on to the next item on your list of... Thank you for listening to the MAKEthrough.studio podcast. This has been episode 1. You've been the audience. I've been the host. You know, it's gone all right. It could have been better, but it was our first one. You know what I mean? Few issues, few little audio issues, little bit of mic bleed, and, you know, a whole bunch of background noise and stuff like that. We'll call that texture. I think we'll call that texture until I know what I'm doing. So yeah, that's what that is. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We really do appreciate you. Please do like, share, comment, subscribe, follow, request alerts. Leave us a nice review if you can, and come back next time to listen to the rest of what Jon has to say. We'll have part 2 of Jon Champion on the next episode. So take it easy. Have your make through when you get a chance. See you on the next one. All the best. Good luck and go well.